What's up, guys? I'm here with Rich from Ground Force Sports, inventor of the King of the Hill. And this is actually the new model, King of the Hill Pro model, where you can use your spikes.
Correct. Use
it outside.
Yeah.
A lot of protein. How many proteins you got now? Or how many in total do you have?
I think 26.
Dang. And 64 pro guys?
Yeah, 64 trainers in the MLB.
Wow. And all over collegiate too,
right?
Right,
and that's not talking about the pitching coordinators that bought it, or the pitching coaches that bought it, or actually the players that bought it too. Trevor Rosenthal just bought one. He's up to 100 miles an hour now.
Dang.
I know.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Now, we're going to talk about today pitching from the stretch, because we see a lot of guys who do a lot of things well from the windup, and then when they get down into the stretch, they break down. What are you seeing from some of your guys?
Well, you know, pitching is all about the legs. I can't say it's all about the legs, but the big part of it is if you don't use your legs, the arm has to do more, which causes more stress and less velocity. And I've seen these players just recently come in and say, I need to learn how to throw out the stretch because I'm losing velocity. And the first thing I see is these coaches teaching them straight slide step, which is okay for me. I don't have any problems with that. I like the modified, where instead of the straight slide, we're lifting up as we're going forward and we get on the back side. But with the loss of flexion in the back leg, we don't get that secondary force. And if you understand, and I've got a model that we can actually measure the not only the force, but the patterns and also the time. If this is the rubber right here, and I go down the mound, the first thing that they want to do is slide straight out to be able to throw the ball, to get the ball to the catcher quicker, which is obviously something that we have to entertain. But the problem is, when I go straight slide step, if you watch my backside, I never get into flexion. And that flexion is what causes the secondary force. Now, the primary force is when we're going down the mound, because our back foot is an anchor where all our weight's on, we will actually start showing some horizontal force. Not much, but some horizontal force. The secondary force is once we get to a position to where it's really late, then all of a sudden we create that force. And that secondary force is the hardest thing to teach, as you know. And this is where so many coaches say, use your legs, but the kids don't understand what you're talking about. And that's where the King of the Hill comes into play. So when I go through my straight slide step with the majority of these kids I see, the first thing they do is just slide straight forward, try to get their arm up, and just use all arm to throw the ball, which this is where arm stress goes up and velocity goes down because we're not using the legs. And when I talk about using the legs, I cause a flexion, which means I'm getting down and I'm creating a bend in this back leg, just like you teach too. But again, the problem is we're doing a straight slide step with these coaches, and I can't say they don't know what they're talking about, but one thing they miss is their kids are never getting into that flexion. The arm has to do all the work. So now, what the King of the Hill does is assure them that they had enough flexion to be able to create that secondary force. So I'm going to just go ahead, and it's pretty light, but I think I might be able to do it. When I go straight in a slide step, you don't hear any noise because I pulled myself right away from the rubber and I got on my front side. But as soon as I create that little flexion and also the hips rotating, the kind of rotation, you hear and that tells me that I had enough flexion to be able to create a force. And that secondary force is so important to velocity and less arm stress.
And that's what you're looking for on the King of the Hill, is that instant audible feedback for the players. So it's like, as coaches, it makes it easier. We don't have to say so much, get them on there, and they can find that in between, because that's really what it is.
Right.
It's an in between. We don't want that big full leg kick in from the stretch, and we don't want that slide step where we're not getting flexed.
Right.
We want to be, what I tell my guys, I don't know if everyone agrees, but 1.3 or below from our first movement to the catcher. But we don't want to sacrifice our drive and our legs in doing so, because like you said, we're going to be throwing with all arm. When we do that, we're not having as much velocity. Usually we leave the ball up in the zone a little bit, and that's the last thing you want to do with runners on base.
Yeah, not good.
Not only is the ball going to be going up, but so is your ERA. So that's what I love about the King of the Hill, is just it gives the players that instant feedback, and they can feel it. So just after a couple of minutes of using it, especially guys in the stretch, they can find that happy medium where they're creating enough energy but still being quick, and that's your whole goal from pitching from the stretch.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, the patterns that I see, which a lot of major leaguers is what I look at because it's the most successful, is what their head's doing. Because the old adage of stay tall and fall, we're not using our legs basically. But if you watch, like I said, Carl Edwards, Chapman, Clemens, Gooden, all the old guys, because I'm old, you'll see their head as they're going forward, they'll drop down. What's happening there is that back legs get down on that flexion. So when I see the kids just stay up tall and just go like this, we know that they're not using their legs.
That's awesome. Guys, for you guys that don't know about the King of the Hill, definitely go check it out. This is the pro model like we talked about. The only difference really between the pro model and the regular model is that this is built to be used with your spikes.
Correct. So
a lot of the pro guys use this because they use it outside. They don't want to change from spikes to turfs or whatever. But you don't have to be a pro to use this. You can be a youth player as well, all age. What's the youngest guy you've seen?
I've seen 7-year-olds. I haven't done it, but I've had 8-year-olds that I started to use it. Not necessarily for getting energy off the backside, but more of a directional, just getting them a force switch. It is adjustable. I could actually back this back all the way back out here, and I could actually take my fingers and defeat the spring pressure and make the noise. So they don't have to drive to be able to make it click.
Right. Look, an 8-year-old doesn't have to drive like a professional player to
Correct.
make it work. And the great thing is, I progress my guys over time. So like an 8-year-old comes to me for a couple years, I'm not going to have it on the same setting. I got it in the paperwork where he started at. Exactly. And then I know over time he's getting stronger and stronger and better at using his legs, and I can make it tighter and tighter.
Right, so you can actually keep track of how hard or what the level of compression is, because we put a little chart right down there, a little gauge.
That's so cool.
And I'm not sure if you know who Mike Reinhold is. He's a top dog.
Shoulder guy, right?
Yeah, shoulder guy. Shoulder, basically all over body, but he's a shoulder specialist. Anyways, he's out on the East Coast. He worked for ASMI for like 4 years, and then he also worked for the Boston Red Sox in the years they won the World Series. He works with a lot of major league players and minor league players, professional players. And he actually had all his guys get on the King of the Hill and try not to make it click. They couldn't do it. Every one of them made it click, which tells you that they're creating that secondary force, and that's why those dudes are mid-90s.
That's awesome. Yeah, and again, it's just that, and I think it goes the opposite way. A guy who can't make it click is going to figure out how to do it pretty quickly. Just by hopping on here.
Right.
So that's what I love about the King of the Hill. If you guys are interested about learning more, check the link down below. You can get it on my website. I got a few videos, a little program that goes with it, and if you buy it from my website, I'll hook you guys up with that. So thanks for watching. Thank you, Rich.
You're welcome.